Twilight stretched over the city like a silk veil, and Kale walked alone through the forest at the edge of the kingdom. The trees were tall, black silhouettes against a fading purple sky, their branches twisted like the hands of some ancient, dreaming giant. The air smelled of wet earth and something faintly sweet, an aroma he had never noticed in the palace gardens. Here in this wild place, he felt a strange freedom, a chance to escape the endless rules and expectations of his title. Kale's boots sank slightly into the damp soil as he stepped carefully over gnarled roots. He wasn't supposed to be here. The forest was forbidden, a place whispered about in palace halls. But the whispered warnings had never held much weight against the pressing need to breathe, to think, to be something other than the prince everyone expected him to be. A sudden glimmer caught his eye. Among the shadows of the trees, a pale figure sat slumped against a moss-covered rock. Her skin shimmered softly like moonlight reflected on water, and her hair glowed faintly like threads of silver. Kale froze. He had never seen anyone like her, not in the kingdom, not even in the stories his tutors told of creatures beyond the edge of the known world. "You are hurt," Kale said, stepping closer, unsure why he spoke aloud. His voice sounded strange even to him, rough with worry he did not intend to feel. The woman raised her head, revealing eyes that glowed like twin stars. A slow, small smile touched her lips, not mocking, not fearful, but warm and knowing. It was a smile that seemed to reach inside Kale, stirring something he had thought long dead, hope, curiosity, and a strange, frightening pull toward her. "I am lost," she said, her voice musical, soft like wind through crystal trees. "And you are far from home, human prince. Names are dangerous here, but you may call me Lysera if it comforts you. Shadows that watch, that wait. I wonder, what will it take to draw you closer?" Something inside him, some instinct he did not fully understand, urged him to turn and leave, yet another part of him, deeper and stronger, whispered that he could not, that he was meant to follow, to know her, to understand. He started, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he reached out a hand, unsure if he wanted to touch her, unsure if she would let him. Lysera's smile deepened, and she did not move away. Instead, she leaned slightly toward him, her eyes softening in a way that made Kale's chest ache. "You say things without thinking, human. Words carry power you do not yet understand." He took an involuntary step closer to her, instinct and fear warring inside him. "What are you?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Lysera's gaze met his, unwavering. "I am what you need, though you do not know it yet." He felt a sudden warmth surge through him, a ripple of power he did not understand. Something inside him, buried beneath years of royal duty and cautious living, awakened. The curse his family had whispered about, the shadow that had haunted his bloodline for generations, it loosened, as if her presence had stirred it awake. Kale stumbled slightly, gripping the nearest tree for support. What is happening to me? Fate has smiled upon you, though it may be dangerous. Because you spoke without thinking, human, and in that moment, you revealed a truth you did not know you carried, one that may change everything." The forest grew darker as twilight deepened, yet Lysera's glow remained, guiding him like a beacon. "Come with me," she said softly, "if you wish to understand, if you wish to survive." But another part of him, a part he had never known existed, pressed him forward. I will follow," he said finally, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. Lysera's smile widened. "Good, but know this, Kale, the path ahead is not kind. There are shadows that hunger and fates that are cruel. Once you step forward, there is no turning back." I understand." Trees twisted into shapes that seemed alive, leaves whispered secrets he could not understand, and the air shimmered with faint starlight, though the first stars had not yet appeared in the sky. Kale felt a mix of awe and terror, a feeling that both exhilarated and frightened him. "Kale," Lysera said, her voice cutting through the hush of the forest, "you have taken the first step. And now the eyes that watch you have begun to stir. Be ready. Fate is curious, and it does not forgive easily." And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, Kale could not stop the pull toward her. The alien woman's smile had changed something inside him, something profound, irrevocable, and utterly unexplainable. As they vanished deeper into the forest, the last light of twilight faded, leaving only the strange glow that surrounded Lysera. Kale knew, with a certainty he had never known before, that his life had already shifted on its axis. He was no longer merely a prince. He was part of something far greater, far darker, and far more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And somewhere in the shadows just beyond sight, Kale sensed the first stirrings of a power that had been waiting for him all along. The forest seemed to hold its breath. And so, Kale's journey began, one of danger, longing, and a fate he could never have predicted, all sparked by a single, fleeting smile. The deeper Kale walked into the forest, the stranger the world around him became. The trees glowed faintly with an inner light, like veins of crystal running through their bark. The air carried whispers he could not fully understand, murmurs that danced just beyond the edge of hearing. Every step he took felt both real and unreal, as if he had crossed into a dream made of shadow and light. Lysera glided ahead, her silver hair spilling like liquid moonlight over her shoulders. She moved with a grace that seemed to defy gravity, her presence pulling the very forest into rhythm with her steps. Kale followed, struggling to keep pace, and yet he could not bring himself to look away. Her light, her aura, was intoxicating, though it carried an unspoken warning. "You feel it, don't you?" Lysera's voice was soft, melodic, carrying both curiosity and caution. "The power that stirs within you. Your blood, your family, your curse. It has always waited for a touch of mine to awaken it. One that has fed on fear and doubt, one that will not rest until it has claimed its due. But there is a choice, Kale, and that choice is you." But he had never imagined that a woman, a stranger from another world, could hold a key to change everything. "Why me?" he asked, voice barely a whisper. "Why do you care?" A thread that cannot be ignored. Crystalline plants rose from the ground like delicate towers, glowing faintly with soft colors, blue, violet, and silver. The air hummed with quiet energy, and the ground beneath his feet seemed alive, pulsing gently as if it had a heartbeat. "This is my sanctuary," Lysera said, glancing around. "Few humans have ever walked here. Fewer still with a heart strong enough to survive it. This place holds knowledge, power, and judgment. You must be careful, Kale. The threads that connect us are not just for guidance, they are also tests. And that the world beyond it may demand more than your life." The water was dark, but it reflected the faint glow of the crystals and the stars above, creating the illusion of a second sky beneath their feet. "This water reveals truths," Lysera explained. "It can show you what you carry inside, and it can awaken what sleeps in your blood." At first, all he saw were shadows, fleeting glimpses of his childhood, his palace, his life of rigid duty. Then the shadows shifted, forming shapes he could not fully recognize, glowing threads, moving and intertwining, reaching out toward something he could not yet see. "What is this?" he whispered. "The magic inside you," Lysera said. "It has been dormant, waiting for the right moment, the right touch. You have awakened it, though whether it will serve or destroy you is yet to be seen." As his hand touched its surface, a ripple of energy surged through him, bright and warm, and for a moment he saw Lysera, not as a stranger, but as a reflection of his own soul. "You feel it?" she asked, stepping closer. "The connection." His mind swam with questions, but one truth was undeniable: she had changed him. Lysera smiled again, that enigmatic, almost dangerous smile. "Our bond is growing," she said, "but it is fragile. There are forces that will try to sever it, Kale, forces that will not stop until they have taken everything from us both." I will not let that happen," he said, though a part of him feared he was speaking too soon. Lysera's gaze softened, almost tenderly. "It is not a matter of letting, Kale. Fate will test you, and you will be challenged in ways you cannot yet imagine. But if you are willing, if you are brave, then perhaps we can face it together." The wind stirred, carrying whispers through the crystals. Shadows danced at the edge of the clearing, shapes that seemed alive yet undefined. Kale felt a chill, but he did not move. He trusted Lysera, and for the first time he allowed himself to believe that he might survive the darkness that was coming. "You are ready for the next step," Lysera said softly, taking his hand. Her touch was light, yet it carried warmth that spread through him like fire. "But it will not be easy. The world outside this sanctuary is not kind, and the enemies we face are patient and cunning." Lysera led him to a narrow path winding between towering crystal formations. "We must leave soon," she said. "The shadows are awakening. They watch us, Kale, and once they know we are here, they will not rest." Fear had not vanished, but it was tempered by a new understanding. He was no longer alone, and for the first time he felt capable of facing what lay ahead. As they walked, the forest seemed to close in around them, yet Lysera's glow lit the path. Every step felt like a test, every glance between them charged with silent emotion, trust, curiosity, and an unspoken bond that grew stronger with each heartbeat. And then, just as the path opened into a wider space, a shadow moved in the corner of Kale's vision. He froze. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The danger he had sensed since the first moment he saw Lysera was approaching, and there was no turning back. Lysera's hand tightened on his. "Stay close, Kale. The true journey begins now." But it would not be easy, and it would not be kind. The forest whispered, the crystals pulsed, and the shadows shifted. Kale took a deep breath, and together he and Lysera stepped forward into the unknown. The forest had grown darker as Kale and Lysera continued along the winding path. Crystals shimmered faintly, casting ghostly reflections on the trees, but a sense of unease pressed upon them both. The shadows no longer moved just at the edges of vision. They now seemed to stretch and twist, as if alive, whispering threats in a language Kale could not understand. "Stay close," Lysera warned, her hand gripping his arm. Her eyes, which had once been gentle and bright, now glowed with urgency. "The shadows are stronger here. They can reach into your mind, whisper lies, test your courage." Without focus, without trust, it might fail him completely. The path opened into a strange chasm where the ground fell away into a swirling void. Stars and lights shimmered far below as if the world itself had fractured into a river of glowing energy. Kale peered over the edge, his stomach twisting. "This is the abyss," Lysera said softly. Her hand remained tight on his. "It is a place between worlds, a prison for those who are lost and a test for those who dare to enter. Your courage, your heart, and your trust must guide us both." Whispers and faint echoes reached his ears, seeming to come from every direction at once. "This is not just a place," Kale whispered, awe and fear entwined. "It is alive." He had never faced himself so directly before. The palace, the crown, the endless expectations, all seemed distant now, as though they belonged to someone else. Here there was only the abyss and the test it demanded. Suddenly, shapes began to form around him. Shadows twisted into figures he recognized, but distorted. His father's stern face leered at him, his teachers' voices echoed criticism, his friends appeared but their eyes were hollow. Each step forward forced him to confront memories and feelings he had buried for years, fear, guilt, and doubt. "You must not falter," Lysera's voice called from somewhere above, or perhaps within him. "Trust yourself, trust the bond between us." Finally he saw her, or a reflection of her, trapped in a crystal cage that floated in the center of the abyss. The crystal shimmered and pulsed, reflecting not only Lysera's form but fragments of Kale's own fears, failure, loss, and the possibility of never returning. "I'm here," Kale called, though his voice sounded small against the vastness of the chasm. "I won't leave you." He saw himself as small, powerless, bound by expectations he had never wanted. And yet, looking at Lysera, he realized that fear alone would not define him. If he allowed himself to be consumed, he would lose more than himself. He would lose her. He took a deep breath and focused, letting the power within him flow outward. A warm glow began to radiate from his hands, touching the edges of the crystal cage. The shadows rose to meet him, whispering doubt, fear, and threats, but he did not waver. He felt Lysera's presence, her trust, and her courage, and he let it guide him. The crystal trembled and cracked. Lysera reached toward him, and for a moment, time seemed suspended. Their hands met, and the glow of Kale's power merged with the light within her, forming a pulse that echoed through the abyss. "You did it," Lysera whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You faced it. You faced yourself." "Yes, together, that is the key. Courage alone is not enough. Trust and the bond between us is stronger than the shadows." But just as relief began to settle, a low, echoing growl vibrated through the abyss. Shadows swirled violently around them, and the air grew cold and heavy. Kale and Lysera turned toward the sound. From the depths emerged a figure, darker than night itself, its form shifting and writhing like smoke and shadow combined. Eyes glowed red within the darkness, and Kale felt a terror unlike any he had known. "This is it," Lysera said softly, her hand tightening on his. "The true test, the fear we carry made real, and it will not release us unless we face it fully together." But he focused on Lysera, her eyes, her smile, the warmth of her hand. He refused to let the darkness define him. "Stand with me," he said, voice firm despite the fear in his chest. "We are not alone, we are stronger together." The shadow hesitated, recoiling from the bond that surged between them. It writhed and hissed, trying to separate them, but their trust and courage held firm. The abyss trembled. Crystals in the distance cracked and fell, but Kale and Lysera pressed on, their hands joined, their hearts beating as one. With a final, concentrated effort, Kale channeled every ounce of courage and strength into the bond, and Lysera mirrored it, adding her light to his. The shadow screamed, a sound that vibrated through bone and mind, then shattered into 1,000 fragments, dissipating into nothingness. The abyss grew silent, the air still, and the oppressive weight lifted. Kale and Lysera stood together, panting, hearts racing but alive. "You did it," Lysera whispered, tears of relief in her glowing eyes. "You faced the abyss and you did not fall. You are stronger than you know, Kale." "I could not have done it without you." Lysera, I. The abyss had tested them, shown them their fears and their courage, and their trust had emerged stronger than any shadow. As they began the climb out of the abyss, the landscape slowly shifted, colors softening, light returning. The strange, alien beauty of the world reminded Kale that there was still magic, still wonder, still hope, even in the darkest places. And for the first time in his life, Kale felt that he was not just a prince, not just a man burdened by duty and a curse. He was part of something larger, something powerful and profoundly beautiful. Lysera glanced at him, her hand still in his. "The world outside will not be as forgiving," she said softly. "But together, we can face anything." And so, hand in hand, they stepped forward, leaving the darkness behind, but knowing it would always linger, waiting for the next test. Kale and Lysera emerged from the abyss, the alien forest stretching around them like a world reborn. Light filtered through the crystalline trees, soft and shimmering, but the air carried tension. The shadows they had defeated in the abyss were not gone. They had been pushed back, waiting, and Kale could feel the watchful presence of something ancient still stirring. "We are not safe yet," Lysera said, her voice calm but firm. Her eyes glimmered with determination, reflecting the faint light of the forest. "The entity that pulled me into the abyss is not gone. It has only retreated. Soon it will return, stronger and more cunning." It would be a battle of hearts, wills, and destiny. They walked silently through the forest, their hands brushing occasionally, a quiet reassurance between them. Kale felt the bond they had forged in the abyss, the light of Lysera's presence merging with the power that now thrummed in his blood. It was a delicate, fragile strength, but it was theirs. Suddenly, the forest changed. The air grew cold, heavy with shadow. The trees twisted unnaturally, their branches reaching like claws. From the darkness ahead, a shape began to emerge, tall, monstrous, made of smoke and shadow, its eyes glowing red like embers. It was the entity from the abyss, now fully formed, exuding menace and hunger. Kale's heart pounded, but he stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Lysera. "We face it together," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Shadows surged, forming smaller creatures around it, writhing and striking at Kale and Lysera. But the bond between them acted like a shield. Light pulsed from Kale's hands, meeting Lysera's radiant aura, forming a barrier that repelled the shadows. Kale's mind focused, every thought honed on the entity. He could feel its intelligence, its hunger to separate them, to exploit fear and doubt. But he refused to let it succeed. He had faced his own shadows. He had faced the abyss. And now he faced this together with Lysera, their bond stronger than any darkness. Lysera lifted her hands, drawing energy from the alien forest, weaving it into a delicate pattern of light. The entity recoiled, hissing, sensing the power that challenged it. Kale joined her, channeling the strength within himself, the power that had awakened in the sanctuary and grown through the abyss. Together, their energy intertwined, forming a brilliant stream of light that met the entity head-on. The battle was not only physical but spiritual. The entity tried to pierce their minds, whispering doubts, fears, and regrets. Kale felt his father's disappointment, the palace's endless expectations, the shadow of the family curse trying to drag him down. Lysera felt her own fears, the guilt of her exile, the pain of being hunted for who she was, but they did not falter. Each time the shadows whispered, they countered with trust, courage, and the bond they had forged. Their energy pulsed, brighter and brighter, and Kale realized something profound. This battle was not about defeating the entity alone. It was about accepting themselves and each other fully. With a final surge of light, they pressed forward. The entity screamed, a sound that shook the air, and its form began to crack and dissolve. Shadows fell away, fading into nothingness. The forest seemed to sigh, the tension easing, as if the world itself acknowledged their victory. Kale and Lysera collapsed to their knees, breathing heavily, their hands still entwined. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the glow from their combined power fading into a gentle radiance that lingered around them. Lysera smiled, softly and warmly, the same smile that had first drawn Kale to her. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief and something more, something unspoken, deep and tender. Kale reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We faced everything together, he said, his voice filled with awe and emotion. And we survived. Her gaze met his, and for the first time, Kale felt the full depth of connection between them, not just trust, but love, respect, and a profound understanding. And now, we are free, Kale, free to shape our fate together. The shadows that had haunted him, the curse that had pressed upon his bloodline, the fears that had weighed so heavily, they were no longer chains. They had faced them, overcome them, and emerged stronger. The forest around them seemed to glow softly, the crystals reflecting the new balance of light and shadow. Birds, strange and beautiful, emerged from the trees, their song filling the air. Kale felt a sense of peace settle over him for the first time in his life. Lysera stepped closer, her hand still in his. "The world outside is not gone," she said. "It will still challenge us. There will still be dangers, but together, nothing can break what we have now. No matter what comes, we face it side by side." The alien forest shimmered, as if acknowledging the triumph of light and trust over darkness. Kale looked at Lysera, and he knew that this moment, this victory, this bond would shape the rest of his life. No longer merely a prince bound by duty, he was now a man who had faced his fears, embraced his power, and found love in the most unexpected place. Lysera leaned closer, resting her forehead gently against his. "Kale, we have survived the darkness. Now, let us see what beauty we can bring to the world together." "Together always." Kale and Lysera stood side by side, facing the horizon, hearts intertwined, ready to step into the future they had earned, not as a prince and an alien stranger, but as two beings bound by courage, love, and shared destiny. And as the night sky stretched endlessly above, Lysera smiled once more, the smile that had changed Kale's fate from the very beginning. A smile that promised adventure, wonder, and the knowledge that some bonds, once forged in shadow and light, could never be broken. The journey was far from over, but together, Kale and Lysera were unstoppable. The world awaited them, and they would face it side by side, hearts as one, ready to carve their legend in a world where light and shadow danced, and love conquered even the deepest darkness.